like to do a quick roll call. And we'll start with Morgan.
Morgan Dean member.
Rob Wilson, alternate.
Alan Burko, alternate.
Mike Capel, member.
Nancy Knight member.
Rick Smith, alternate.
Bill Spence, member.
John Racine, member.
Rich Rita, select board ex officio.
Margaret Turner, alternate. Catherine Brennan member.
Okay, great. So, let me see, we have some. I would really like to kind of get the minutes out of the way. Has everyone had enough time to take a look at the minutes or?
No.
I know. Do we wanna? We wanna take care of them now, look at them a little later? Burn till next-
Just get them done.
Say that again, Mike?
My suggestion is that we read them and get them done, so
Get them
it
done.
doesn't drag on.
So let's take a few minutes and go over the. November. November 8th, let's get that one out of the way first. Just take a minute and look it over. Anybody? Any comments on November 8th?
Then they pick up. I mentioned in the last meeting that the way it's written, proposed amendment one is a period. So it's a nitpick, but it's not a complete sentence the way it's written. So take away the period and the wood should be small w. That's consistent with all of them. Otherwise, no comment.
Anybody else with November 8th?
Nancy's still reading.
I'm done with 8. I don't do
Okay.
I'm
anything.
sure everyone's done with 8.
Okay, we'll move on to,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. Make a motion.
okay, then
Again,
I'll move that the minutes be, the minutes of the November 8th meeting be accepted with minor alteration.
Anyone want to second that?
I second that.
Everyone approve?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone not approve? Okay, let's get on to November 9. If anyone has any comments, just jump right in on that.
Okay, the comment on line 43. In quotation marks, it says, unless I am mistaken, but it doesn't say who's speaking. I presume it's Tara.
Yeah, all those are written as Tara's comments.
It should be stated that
I think the para above that, it says,
she recommended the following
Oh,
corrections.
it should be a colon then, not a period after approval, right? And that way you understand that that's what it's talking about.
Yes. But I think it's, okay. It's a minor alteration, but for prosperity, when somebody reads this a few years ago, or a few years later, I should say, it should be clear to whom the quotation is referring.
I think so.
So what line would you like to have Tara's name in there? Make that a little clearer.
Well, the first
37?
one is,
Wouldn't making a colon, I mean, 'cause she recommended the following corrections before approving, colon,
So that's cut and pasted from my comments
that's it.
and can't be changed because it's a quote, but it also shouldn't be the wording that's used in the conditions of approval in the minutes. The conditions of approval shouldn't have I in it. Those were my comments to the board,
agreed.
Yeah,
just rewrite that section.
but
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
rewrite it, but make clear it's not from my comments anymore. Based on my comments, but not verbatim my comments.
so do you still want to change line 43 to Tara?
I would, and in each case where it happens, 49. There's another I.
Can we do that okay, Sharon? All right with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's wrong, Kate.
Okay,
And 47, there's another one.
okay. Yeah, I would like that, if we could do that.
To do that, to rewrite that.
Yeah.
I just had a question sorry, going back to lines 15 and 16. It was Jenny already, she had resigned at that point, and then was I seated?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's a fair point.
Lucas's name should come out of there. And then Kathy Brennan's name should be in, and
As a member,
as a member.
Well, at that point as an alternate, but I was seated.
I seated you,
Yeah.
right?
I wasn't. until-
Good catch, yeah. Any more on November 9?
I had a question. I guess this is for Tara. It says you stated the purpose of the requirement for planning board review and approval of a lot line adjustment is limited to ensuring no new lots are created. But somebody might wanna split their very large lot. I think we've even done that in the past. That doesn't make sense to me.
That's not a lot line adjustment then.
Right.
Right.
Oh, I see.
The lot line adjustment isn't a subdivision because it's not creating any new lots or building sites. And the purpose is to make sure no new lots are being created and no lots are being made to be not in conformance with the zoning.
Okay. So it's adjustment is the operating word here, not lot line.
Yes.
I got you.
Right.
Anything else on November 9? Anybody?
John,
Rick,
I said, I guess, a comment about the Jameson and consultation,
what lot is that?
80, I guess it'd be 85 and,
Okay,
so we talked about the pricing of the units, but it was really specifically around, there was concern from the public about that, you know, we're focused on some workforce housing and that market rate apartments don't really cover that. And I think there was quite a bit of dialogue about that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, I
Yeah,
might
but
just be making that up.
basically it came down, said, these are not intended to be worker housing.
I think we should capture that. I think it's a great point.
That's fine. I mean, but they made it,
This
that
is
was his
too-
point.
Yes,
It's
but
not
with
workforce
respect
housing,
to,
it's market rate housing.
Well, I think actually he was more specifically saying, we have people at the mountain who are, you know, I don't know if he said mid-level folks, but.
Well,
people
they
that
do
would
have
pay-
people that can afford.
that are
it.
making enough to pay for market.
Yeah.
Rate apartments. This isn't focused on the lift attendants or whatever.
Yeah.
right.
So there was that. And then the other comment I wanted to make was that, and it's not here, so I can't focus on a line, but I did ask the question, does this replace your desire to build up on that property up the street here? And he said, no. So doesn't, that kind of clearly says that that's the workforce stuff up there.
Right.
This one over here by the conference center is just market rate apartments.
My conversations with him, I don't think that's a correct inference. I think they're feeling that this might be something they could do quicker than the project on the Forest Service land might happen.
I think that's true.
So I don't think it's fair to assign intention in minutes.
Well, I asked him specifically, does this replace the need to build those up there? And he said, no.
Right.
So
But
that's-
it doesn't mean that one's workforce and the other's not. It's because they can move quicker on this.
Yeah, and I guess there's nothing to say that they wouldn't build market rate stuff up the street either.
Well, wait a minute, you have, if, the issue with that regard is you have to go in, and even though it's the 2018 Farm Bill that allows that, you have to go in and read what it says that they can do with that,
Okay,
all right? And basically, that is specifically designed for, they don't call it workforce, they call it lower income or affordable housing. That's what they talk about in the Farm Bill. Now, we don't know what the 2000 and I'm gonna call it 2013. It may turn out to be 2014, by the time it's actually done, assuming it is. But that's what was there then. That's what the draft of that legislation says.
yeah, they need that.
So, but that has not passed yet. We don't know what, when and or if it will pass. How's that?
That's fine. I'm not necessarily concerned about that. I was more concerned about the market rate apartments he was
Yeah.
talking about building down here.
Kathy?
But 2 comments, I agree with Rick, yeah, that there was that discussion about that this was, you know, it's gonna be an apartment building. Set, the rate set by what the market would bear. So I think that is important to put in there because it's not a workforce housing apartment building. And then also Tara, there was a comment that you had made a suggestion to Mr. Sununu that he really go to the ZBA first. before doing site, I don't know if you want that in here, before doing site plans, because for him to get approval of the, to be able to, get a waiver on some of the variances ahead of time before he invested money in a whole site plan.
Well, and also to see what happens with the zoning amendments.
Yeah,
The site plan is the most expensive piece of all of it.
so I remember there was that comment.
All
I
right.
think is important because, you
Yeah.
know, it's a moot point if he's not gonna be able to get it approved. Why should he invest all that money? You know,
Rich?
Yeah, so I think the issue here is what are the minutes for? Not specifically the details of what was discussed. If you're gonna put in some details, then you have to be careful to pick the
Which
important
details you
details.
have.
You're stressing this or stressing that. There is a videotape, whatever it's called these days, a digital recording of the meeting. And I think the practice in the town has been, and Margaret, I think it's true in select board for years, is that the minutes are meant just to capture the general subject. And maybe if it's an important point, the important point, but it's a summary, a very quick summary, and people can go to the digital. See, now, even here, we're remembering different things or taking away different things from what's said, so I think you have to be very careful what one puts in the minutes. Keep it, I think, as general as possible, capture maybe the important points without listing everything, because we've had different people list several different things.
Yeah, I think what Kathy said is the most important point. I think somebody comes in for a conceptual, they're there to obtain guidance from the board and its professional staff. So like that was probably the only advice given to him at the meeting, was to, if he's relying on variances, to go to the ZBA first. I think I agree with Kathy that should be in. You know, you could say whatever you want about this being a summary and the recording being the details, but the paper written summary is is the record that would go to court.
Hmm.
You can't leave out details that you might need to rely on in a court case later on.
I wasn't arguing that, I'm saying be careful what you want to.
Well, I don't agree with you that it's just a summary. It's the record of the decisions. And this starts with him coming in with a conceptual. So I'd agree with Kathy on that.
and just one other point though, again, just to reiterate, we already just said, but the first sentence is, you know, he presented a conceptual idea for a workforce housing apartment building. I think that's a little misleading because it really wasn't. And I don't think he characterized it really. I mean, maybe he, I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah.
Right. Workforce has a statutory definition, and that's not what he's proposing.
Yeah, so that should come out. Is that what you're
Yeah.
proposing?
Yes.
If we're gonna write these for legal review, then it should be the transcript of the meeting.
No, that's not what anybody does.
Well,
Rich.
but that's the input of what you're saying, Tara, and I
No,
think,
that's not how we write minutes.
I understand that, but I think we've had a practice in this town, as I understand it, to keep the minutes to the important points. I'm not arguing that you don't say what occurred, just make sure you have the right important points, but not to go over every single point that was necessarily arisen.
But it is a mischaracterization. Workforce housing is something very specific under New Hampshire law, and that's not what he's proposing.
Right, and I'm saying it should be correct. I'm generally agreeing with you. The important points ought to be there correctly.
Well, you could replace the term workforce with market value.
You could just cross out workforce housing.
Just take it right out.
As I know, that's what he
Put
said.
apartment building.
That's what he said. Yeah, fine.
If,
That's good.
Any other comments
Yeah,
on
that's- it wasn't-
November 9?
Okay, who's gonna inject the point about the ZBA? That's gotta be written in.
Tara recommended, you know, you can go back and look at
Well,
at the tape, I
okay.
guess.
One recommendation would simply be to defer the acceptance of these minutes until the corrections have been made. And we review it again at the next meeting. That's what I would propose.
I like that one.
I think
This one.
it's
This is
much,
the first
much
one.
much too important than to simply dribble something in here and then pass it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because,
so when Alicia goes back and looks through this, how are we gonna word it and where are we gonna put it? So she doesn't have to do any guessing.
She could
Well-
just take the quote from Tara, right? If you, I mean. It was a quick conversation. That she
another
recommended to him.
suggestion is that these minutes should be proposed or presented to the board for review at least 3 days before the meeting. We have a chance to
Well,
review.
Yeah, I mean, why not within the 5 days that they must be being prepared?
Yes, that's typical, is that 5 days after the meeting, the minutes are ready. Is that what you're
But-
suggesting?
But I'm happy to send Alicia the sentence that I would have said if I was me, so.
Okay,
Would you do that? That would be
at
helpful.
least helpful to her.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they rewritten and re-presented to the board.
All right, do you want to make a motion on November?
Okay, then
9th?
I move that the minutes
You ready to
be
move on?
Deferred.
deferred. That is the approval, I move that the approval of the minutes of the November 9 meeting be deferred until they have been amended and represented to the board at the next meeting.
Seconded.
You want a second time, Morgan? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, let's go to the last one, November 17.
Anyways, back to Catherine's comment. You were a board member by that time, were you not?
No, I just what, last week?
Yeah, she didn't get quite sworn in.
I see. Okay.
I just had a question.
Go ahead.
Under property revaluation 132, is the 35,000 statistical update, like a software,
I'm sorry, what line was that?
132?
132?
Yeah, I was just,
And what was your question again on that?
the $35,000 statistical update, is that like a new software for?
No,
Alright.
that is work by our assessing.
That's when they.
They come in and analyze sales data.
Oh, okay.
It's done, it's work that is done by our assessors.
We do that every year?
No, only when it's outside of the acceptable range. When the ratio, the sales ratio gets outside of the acceptable range, we have to adjust values.
When prices
Sure.
change, you mean?
In 20.
Assessed value versus selling value.
Gotcha. Mm.
Not after my program on some type of environments. Unfortunately.
Any other comments? On November 17? Any other corrections? Mr. Secretary?
Yes, I move that the minutes be adopted, November 17th minutes be adopted as amended.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Minutes away. I usually like to do this a couple times, privilege of the floor. Tom, did you have anything you wanted to say now, or? Okay. Could you come right up?
In regards to what might or might not be in minutes from last night. In the discussion Bill Spence and I had, you had indicated that I was favorable to the Bull Hill condominium. You have me confused with Ken Ackley. I was never in favor of that passing. The only person in Moose Run that ever spoke out in favor of it was Ken Ackley, who lives directly behind it, directly behind the open lot. But that wasn't me.
Okay,
Now, one more point of caution. The changes you're making in zoning are not understood by the town. And I think you need to do a better job of educating the pluses and minuses of what you're trying to accomplish. If they understand what you're trying to accomplish, they'll likely be with you. If they don't, they'll look at individual changes, scratch their head, and look for the dark side, because that's the nature of people. They'll think you're trying to pull something over on them if they don't have a framework in which to understand what you do. So if there's anything in the minutes that relates to our conversation last night that indicate I might have ever been in favor of that, please amend it. Thank you.
Okay.
Mark? Do you want me to do the amendments, or do you want to bring the chief on first?
I think you should do the amendments first, because it's something totally different, and I don't want to confuse
Okay,
the work that you're already doing.
okay. So this is old business with the zoning public hearing review, and Tara, do you have any thoughts, comments on that? Want to start that off for us?
Sure, so, you could make a decision about what you want to send to town meeting. You don't have to make that decision today, just to be clear. There's still time if you make it at the January meeting. And the one amendment that there was a lot of concern about, I just want to encourage you to consider that it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You could make changes to that amendment and have another hearing. And I just want to reiterate, there was a lot of talk about as if people had a right to expect the zoning next to them doesn't change, and that's just a myth. The only vested right people have is that if they have a permit to do something on their property, or they've obtained or they've submitted a complete application for a subdivision or site plan before a hearing for zoning changes is posted, that they still get to do that thing that they've invested in on their own land. So, yeah, other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions as you go along.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Rob.
may I comment?
Yes.
Just like overall, I think there was some confusion by the people, and I mean, that they didn't understand that, yes, we're having a meeting today to review their comments, and yeah, I mean, you know, kind of warned us, okay, you know, planning board, don't get in big, long discussions. I think we did a little bit too much of that yesterday, and that's just an opinion, you know, from observing. But yeah, I think like for the future public meetings, if, you know, if we started off with, you know, we're here to listen to your comments, we're going to take them. If you have questions, we can answer. Yes, if we can't answer them here, we will take them back and get back to you. You know, that type of framework. And in terms of number 6, I think, you know, it is that balance between listening to the people in the town. The one thing, I mean, there were a couple of questions, you know, around that, like how many lots are affected, this, that, the other thing, we didn't have that answer. You know, and we could say, well, you know, we'll get those answers to you and explain that to you, and then you can go vote for it. Or, you know, there was one thing brought up about tabling this one amendment. You know, it's controversial and it can affect other ones in terms of yes, these make sense. And if you have this big one, maybe it is something that we move to next year. So those were my kind of takeaways from it. But we did not have answers to legitimate questions that they had. Dissertation done.
Very well done, though.
Alan? I know you got something to say.
Yeah, Tara, can I ask you a question on this? Is it possible for the amendment to say something like an LDR that abuts a different lot, a different zone? The different zone has to assume the LDR setback just for the 2 lots that abut? We're doing that on the next one, essentially, when you say you can move it closer to the lot line when you're discussing a commercial one or something like that. You're giving them the.
But Alan, that's what this amendment does, is make it the same as the LDR setback.
No, if an LDR is adjacent to, you know, any other one, that, and the other one says is now a 20-foot setback as opposed to the 35, I'm saying that 20 has to become 35 because it's adjacent to the LDR.
Well, that's what you have now.
Right.
Yes.
That's the zoning now, is that that's not assuming the LDR setback. The LDR setback's 20.
I'm not worried about the number. I'm worried about what was discussed last night about somebody putting a building closer than expected, if that's the right answer. If that's what it is now, I didn't know that. And
Do you guys have the amendment text in front of you, the actual amendment text that should have been available last night?
Yep.
Do you have it in front of you?
I know.
The
Yeah,
board
but-
should, the board needs to have that in front of them. The text, actual text of the zoning amendments, it's 7 pages. You can't really have this conversation without the 7-page text of the amendments in front of you.
Which you all got yet last night.
Yes.
You had a complete packet with the amendment G, and then underneath that, you had
Here it
a
is.
7-page that showed the strikeouts and the additions that are the actual changes in the zoning. You have that.
Yeah, we have it.
Do you have any extra?
So I'm not following your question, Alan, because what we're trying to do is say it would be the same as the LDR setback, which is 20 feet,
Thanks, Mark.
rather than 15 extra feet.
Okay, then I'm misunderstanding this.
There's like
I-
there's
I
a
thought the
there's
I
a
thought-
penalty for people who abut the LDR right now.
No, I disagree. I disagree with the term penalty.
Well, I'm trying to explain to him.
They got it
I-
that's what it was. That's not a penalty. It's the way it is.
Sorry,
I disagree with the term.
Well, either way, it's,
Right.
it's something different
It is
and
di-
worse.
It is a
So,
difference,
I don't think.
In
it's
favor of
inaccurate to
LDR.
Call it a penalty.
right? It is a difference
In favor of LDR.
So 2 comments.
But it also
One is,
penalizes people who abut it.
Yeah, that's in favor, and that may be because you have a higher tax rate there. People are, like, that's why they bought into it. They wanted more space. Right or wrong, whatever your opinion is about that, but that's really, you're paying a higher rate being in the LDR. I think that, and we can tell me if I'm wrong, but the spirit of proposed amendment 6 is to create more space, people to have the ability to build. And looking at our town, which doesn't have a lot of available space, this is where there was that opportunity. And I think that was kind of the spirit of, you know, trying to find something that make it consistent. And, you know, yes, the LDR does kind of, you know, if you're gonna do winners and losers, to Tara's point, you know, they're always gonna be, yeah, you do lose out on that. And that's, but that's the spirit, I think, was to find a space to create, to build. So if that, I think, can be kind of the discussion, do we support that or not?
Yeah, that's essentially it. That is, we started looking at these amendments with considering the spirit of the request on the part of the state. The state has made it clear that the state believes that there is a housing crisis and that there is insufficient housing for workforce. And that this is
For everyone.
For
everybody in the state.
For
Yeah.
seniors,
Yes, and that in this, for this town in particular, that there's a great deficit in the amount of housing available to employees. So what we were trying to do last night was to put forward these amendments in that spirit, to say that we've been asked by, or it's been indicated that the state would like this done, that it's not going to be done in Concord. It's going to be done municipality by municipality. If these objectives are going to be met in any degree, it's going to be done town by town. So our town is asked to do this. Money was provided by means of a grant to study and make up recommendations. And that was, well, to a degree, argued last night. That there was at least one comment was to say, I'm not that interested, or I object to the term in the best interest of the town. And that was referring to what's in the best interest of the principal landowners in the town and those who pay the most taxes. But I would disagree with that. I would say that that's not what we were intending to accomplish. So one thing we could do is defer this one item, number 6, for further discussion and maybe amendment at the next meeting, and move forward on 7 through 10. To say that all of those 7 through 10 could be moved forward to the town meeting, or at least warrants could be composed, and that those could be accepted. At least we could accomplish that at this meeting. And then when we could debate number 6 further as to whether we would do a better job. I think the comment that was made by Tom Myrick is correct, and well, at least I accept it, in that the planning board hasn't done a sufficiently good job in selling its objectives to the town. We've had these problems previously. We've had difficulty in selling the First Amendment, which had to do with cottage courts. And that was voted down. And we had another issue concerning the definition of concert. And that was voted down. I think we could have done a much better job in selling these ideas to the town. And I think Myrick's comment about if people are confused, they look to the dark side. That is, a look to the negative to say, and I've heard these comments before, what's the planning board trying to pull over on us? I.e. the voters. So I think that if we were to amend number 6 and then make a concerted effort to sell it, that it may be much better accepted.
Yeah, I agree. We should just start now and put articles in the wigwam, for instance. Because I think it was misunderstood. Like, the state has a statute actually that says towns like ours that do land use ordinances shall make efforts to increase the possibility for workforce housing. So we are actually obligated to do work like this. And if somebody has a better idea, like put that in the article, like, come forward. Like, our meetings are open, but we have not heard anyone else come up with anything better.
Yeah, but we do know that what happens is that people don't come forward. They don't come to a meeting unless it affects their personal self-interest.
Right.
Can I ask a question? So we had a public meeting October 26th to try to feel the public out about these, and hardly anybody was there. We under the HUP grant, would be happy to do you've done before informational meetings closer to town meeting on what the amendments are, not have a back and forth, but answering technical questions. And we can do that under the HUP grant, but how do you get people there? Is that just not the best way to get the word out in Waterville Valley?
Way to get the
Yeah,
word out.
I think we
Wigwag.
gotta write articles for the wigwag every month.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Just,
There is,
I mean,
no, there's a social.
PR is PR.
News and
If I could,
News and views is well read.
If I could
Both of
comment,
them.
I don't think this is just or mainly an issue of poor presentation on our part. I agree with Tara. We go to great lengths to make available our discussions to people. And again, it's all there digitally if anyone can't make the meeting. I also think it gives short shrift to the legitimate interest of people who do come here to say that they're misinformed necessarily, or that we haven't done a good job in educating them. They know their own interest. The comments yesterday were based on their personal interests,
And they did it well.
and they did it well. There's nothing wrong with that. I support that 150%. I would do the same thing, maybe not necessarily on that topic. I would come and represent my interest. And I think that's what's going on. It's not a question of, and it's up to everyone to decide to what extent they want to deal with their interests in a way that balances, say, with community interests. That's a personal decision by residents and voters and property owners. That's the process here. That's the good process here. So to say that it's, and I'm gonna disagree with my good friend Bill here, to say that it's a question of poor advertising, like poor education, I think misses the point in large measure.
Well, I think it's also the question of, there was like one person here, right? One or two people here. That, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the issues, and that isn't, like, that may be an issue of poor advertising. I mean, that's what the woman who was right here said. You know, she needs it to be easier for her. You know, she needs an email with an attachment. You know, she needs push, not just pull, you know, that we need to push.
There
out
are
whatever.
duties and obligations both to citizens and public officials.
Right, but that's still what the people are telling us,
Mike,
Right.
you had something?
and they're not here. So.
That's
it's-
right. They're not here when we're voting on this.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
I
correct.
thought you had your hand up.
You know, Nancy, I understand everything you're saying, and you're absolutely right that
And we're not obligated, but we,
Right,
listen.
exactly. We're not obligated to do something, however. We're a small town. And all of us live in this town. We all know each other. There's 400.
There are
30
seven-
No, I don't wanna talk about the non-voters.
No, 700 residents.
There are 700
700 people.
How many of those are voters?
All of them.
No, they
claim
can't-
that they're
no, can't-
adults.
If-
And all of the adults of those
Right,
700.
but last time I looked was like 440 or 450.
Okay,
voters.
450, 500, whatever.
Whatever the number is,
Yeah.
I don't wanna count the people that are children or off at college or whatever. There's 400 and something, 450 more or less voters in the town. That have the right to come to town meeting. Have their say and vote. We need to make sure that all of those people. Understand that which we're talking about. And I know what Nancy's saying, it may not be an obligation. But it is something that we should do in our small town. Or village, or whatever we wanna call it.
Can I-
Yes, of course.
So just a couple of observations. You guys have been working on this for months. You have had professionals, both at the town level and at the regional level, which is multi-county, the whole northern half of the state, make recommendations to you for ways to address a problem that your entire business community agrees exists, that we are seeing at the town level. There is no housing for people who we need to work here in order to be an effective community, whether it's taking care of the resort or whether it's town related. whatever, even the National Forest staff. Okay? So you have these recommendations from them. We still have 3 months before the voters have to vote on this. You can have multiple public meetings to explain it. You can put articles in the wigwag. There's 3 wigwag editions that'll come out before town meeting. We've still got 5 days to get it in the January one, right? So we still have plenty of opportunity to communicate this. I would not set it aside. This is an immediate need right now. And it's not just our town, it's the entire northern half of the state that is in this crisis. There is no housing. There's no place for people to live. And if we want to draw them in and we want to have a vibrant community, we've got to do something. And I've been in municipal government for 30 years. Zoning changes. You buy a piece of property today, 5 years from now, the situation that your community is in is going to change. There are going to be different priorities. And so to say that because someone bought a piece of land yesterday or 5 years ago, and that we should not make any modifications to our community because they did that with a certain expectation, that's just not realistic. Then zoning would never change in any situation. So I just would urge you not to set this aside. You guys have been very thoughtful about what you're doing. This is not a whim. This is not to benefit a single person. You're trying to address a problem. So I would communicate it, and I agree, you gotta figure out how to get that across. An expectation of personal discussion with every person is not realistic. You're not gonna do that. So I just would urge you not to do away with the months of work that you've already done.
Started in April.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so anyway.
Alan, you had your hand up?
You made a comment that the business community is very much in favor of this.
Mhm.
Actions speak louder than words. Why isn't Sununu's proposed conceptual plan workforce housing and not market housing?
Because they can't build it. Because in order to make it low, moderate income or workforce or whatever term you want to use, you've got to have a subsidy. Because a developer coming in cannot build a development for that type of housing without assistance. The market's going to drive what gets built. Okay, so the builder has to build it as a market rate house. But it doesn't mean that the resort or the Forest Service or the town can't subsidize their employees as a benefit in order to afford how to live there. That'll be their decisions.
Tyrell could subsidize his whole building and make it workforce housing.
That's what he is choice.
But and so he
But
is.
what I'm saying is, and I don't deny that there's a demand.
Mhm.
But what Tyrell is saying is, I'm getting my money out of this apartment building. You guys figure out workforce housing on your own. Whereas they could put a building in that's fully subsidized by Tyrell and have it all workforce housing.
But what's the incentive for the business to do that?
Wait.
So.
We can't rely on them to do everything.
We can't,
Or anything, let's be honest.
we
Yeah,
just have to create opportunity for people to take steps to build housing, which we are looking to be different than the current housing that's being built. Where you have $1 million condos or $700,000 condos being built now. We know that those will never be afforded by anybody that's gonna work here.
So the town could say to Tyrell, if you want to build this building,
Mhm.
we want workforce housing. We're willing to forego $100,000 a year in taxes
we are very limited, we cannot do that because of state law. There are huge limitations on how the town taxes property.
Right.
And I'd be happy to sit down and explain those to you separately,
Mark,
but anyway.
it's very simple. It is very simple. Should Terrell, after they have built this, should they decide
I think we're
This
off.
isn't-
do it.
This isn't
they
about,
could subsidize?
this
it.
isn't
But
about.
that, this
like
is
I
not
said,
what they present.
We're off course.
This is,
And they're way down, they're
Mike,
nowhere near the line.
you gotta
Stuff like
stop.
that.
this is going,
We're off course
this is
here.
going to the point that I made. This, everything that you've been talking about up to now is not about an individual or a single company. It's about creating opportunity across the town. And you guys, I think, listening to your conversations, you've been very fair about that. It does apply everywhere in town. It's not targeted to a single parcel of land or anything like that. So we can talk about individuals separately, but for your purposes, for this amendment, it's the whole town. You're just trying to make more opportunity there to build housing.
John?
Can I just add,
Wait, everyone hold up, stop. Sharon, you have a comment from a public, could you
Yeah.
read that to us?
Sure, Jenny Lucas, commented, in her words, well, you decided to not make any modifications to D1 zoning because that property owner said he didn't like it, but you're not affording the same courtesy to other residents?
I don't know what that means.
Is this
Is Jenny on?
in
Can she
particular
explain?
to her property or the entire, what is she referring to?
He's on, see, we can,
Jenny Lucas, can you hear us?
Hey, Jenny, you there?
What's D1?
C1. Where I live.
I will ask her to unmute, so if, she's just out of earshot.
Yeah, I know she's not around, so she might be zooming, from a different location.
Well. Yeah, but she's
I don't understand the comment.
All right. so that doesn't
Speaking of
make
that,
sense.
did everyone get, Jenny Lucas's comments?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we all read that?
They were very
I wanna
well written.
Make sure we all got that, okay.
I think this is
don't
the wrong
disagree
one.
or disagree.
So Jenny, if you're around, please just let us know, we'll,
I don't have a mic.
oh, she says she doesn't have a mic.
That's what it says, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I know, I'm just trying to make sure that Jenny's taken care of, and I think, does she say she doesn't have a microphone?
yeah,
Yes,
Oh, and that she
typed it
doesn't
right
have
in there.
Okay.
It's not
Okay. All right, Margaret,
John, I just had a comment to add to Mark's to answer Alan. If I could, before you go on another path.
okay, go ahead.
Just to be clear, towns don't have the right under state law to require anybody to build workforce housing. All you can do under the law is, as Mark said, create opportunities to make it more affordable to build housing.
Okay, Margaret,
Okay, just let me be a little bit of the devil's advocate here and just take this in the context of, I don't necessarily believe everything I'm gonna say now, but I can hear people saying, it, okay? If you look at the map that was drawn for 6, in terms of what properties are impacted if this changes. There's less than 10. Okay, and a number of the people who have those properties were here last night expressing their disagreement. Most of those are LDR people. So they're very vocal. And what I would tell you is that I think a lot of the other LDR people would side right with them when it comes to a vote, and the motion would go down. I understand what it is that we're trying to do, but I don't think that it has a lot of impact on what we're trying to do because there are so few spaces in which this can be done. The other things that we're doing, the parking, some of the other things, the idea of a cluster home, those things perhaps, yes. And I also understand the argument that says, well, in the future, it might be different. But that's not what people think about when they go to the ballot box. They think about what is the impact today. And if there was to be a change in the future, they'd get the vote on that too. Okay, so from a practical standpoint, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to put the amendment forth because I don't think it's gonna make it.
Well, why wouldn't we try? Why would we just give up? I kind of agree with Mark, I gotta say. That seems kind of fatalistic. Making me sad.
Okay.
And also realistic.
I have a question.
We gotta try.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
What are we here for then?
I have a question. Are we supposed to represent our feelings or the will of the people?
No, this is a civic,
No,
we're an instrument of civic government.
Right.
We're supposed to act in the nature or in the better interest of the community.
Of the community, not what we think personally,
Yes.
all right?
Well, isn't it based on your
No, yes.
experiences?
Bring your personal experience and judgments into it. That's why you were appointed by the select board.
With an understanding of the state's rules and regulations,
Which I understand.
which say. we
Not
shall
your
do
personal
this.
interest.
So
but
I
your
don't care
knowledge
whether
of
we're.
personal
or not.
We
Personal
will put forth
experience.
the opportunity for people to do it. Right. Which is what this does.
Morgan,
If you take a look at our board, I think this is this is a good representation of the citizens of this town.
Yeah.
Right? Many retired folks, many older people, and a few. Like, and to be honest, New Hampshire has a demographic that is older than the national average. Waterville Valley is more
Yep.
than that average. So when you're taking into account that we are the representatives of this community, it feels like we actually are. Right? We have everybody that we need with all different experiences and people who have come from all over and people who have grown up here. It makes sense. So with all of our experiences, if we think this is the best way forward, I don't think we should discount all the work we've done, like Mark said. And I think that we should put it forward because we need the town to know that we're trying.
Alan,
I think Tara brought up a great point. No matter what we say, if we allow building an ADU on somebody's property, there's no way to force them to make it workforce housing. If that's, and it probably won't, specifically Tyrell's building. So we're not gonna accomplish what we want, which is workforce housing. That's our charge.
But it's
We're
also more housing and cheaper housing, and the more housing we allow to be built by changing the regulations, the more the price is gonna go down and not up.
Excuse me. We're building houses left and right. Mike's house is now $1 million plus, and every house is going higher and higher. You're gonna change I'm not a realtor, and I understand your concept, but if I'm gonna put a 1,000 square foot house there, I'm gonna charge the same per square foot that I'm gonna do for a 4,000 square foot house. So is it more affordable? Yes, but is it affordable? No.
Until 50 houses do that, and then the price goes down.
I can't believe you see 50 houses
Well,
doing
I
that.
mean, but that's, the idea is you make it possible. It's not possible now.
We're sending down multiple ladders and multiple different ways for people to climb up. We're not trying to pull the ladder up
ADU is
behind
a
us.
Full house. ADU is, by definition, I think would be a much more reasonable rent than a house.
Or it could be an in-law suite,
Which is more likely what it's gonna be.
which.
That's
okay.
fine.
That's
So
the
you're
idea of
there,
affordability.
Nope,
so
you got
there-
But our charge is to do workforce housing. That's what this
No, it's
was
a
all about.
housing,
That's what the grant was for.
so Jenny has another comment, I believe. Sharon, could you read that for us?
Yes.
Is it from Jenny?
It is from Jenny.
Okay.
And she has written. In her words, Tara said last night that the one housing opportunity survey question that got decent support was the one that would require C1 to require housing. But after discussing this potential type of amendment to C1 with Sununu, They said, no, we don't like that idea. So it's not even being proposed. But other property owners who own other types of properties are not being given the same weight. And I get it, they're in a big taxpayer, they're a big taxpayer, and we little property owners are not. The optics of this are, once again, the developer gets their way and the little property owner gets the short stick.
Could I take a stab at
Yeah.
that quickly? I think, Jenny, you're misunderstanding. I don't recall, I think you're right, that's what Sununu said. But I think the intent behind it is that they want to build commercial property, not housing in C1, and the town absolutely wants them to build commercial housing and commercial properties in C1, not housing. We don't want nothing but $1 million condominiums on the last parcel of C1. I think that was the context of what was going on. It wasn't a developer versus a smaller landowner. And I think the question was question 2, am I right, Tara?
She was
50.
so, yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but she's referring to something I said, and I can tell you what I meant. And it was a conversation I had with Terrell, about them not being developers and not being able to find a developer for the property if there are too many restrictions on what can be built. So it's not what we do with what's built, it's whether anything gets built in the commercial core, which the planning board has said it wants.
Our regulations don't preclude workforce housing above shops in the C1, do they?
No, that's a permanent use.
Yeah, so we're not, so it's already allowed, we're just not forcing the issue. But I think that's okay, because if they see a need for other businesses above it, it's hard to
But
argue.
this was to limit that. The question was to limit that type of development, housing above commercial. And that was 50 yes and 35 no.
That was the only thing.
On the question.
Yes, to limit.
Yes, to limit. So
Yeah.
would you support a zoning amendment to limit new residential development in the commercial 1 zoning district to smaller year-round dwelling units? So,
Built only to the upper.
right,
Above.
right, develop only in the upper stories of mixed use. And there was majority support for that.
One of the only things that had majority support.
It was the only thing that did.
Yeah, I'm sorry. it
That's
was.
what I disclosed last night.
And kind of my example is, if you look at the village, our current village. And you look at, we have commercial down the bottom, and residential above it, that methodology. If you look around the country and other places, that is becoming more and more common. Type of things. All right, now, what Terrell said. Is they don't want to be limited to that being a certain type of residential. They want to be able to do it how they feel is appropriate. They may or may not make that affordable. Right? Or they may make it market or whatever. So that was the issue that they said, and when they showed their development.
Which includes some of that. And I think this board and the select board have both opined that it's not in the interest of the town for that property. That C1, that last commercial chunk of property to be simply housing
right.
in any, even above.
Basically to build a
commercial.
whole bunch more of Green Peak behind us. That is not what the town and or would like to see. We would like to see a development more like the greens and other things that they have shown us.
Mhm.
That's kind of what we said.
Morgan?
So what Mike said is that like the residences above commercial properties are becoming more popular. You have to think why. It's because we can't afford houses, so we're going to go somewhere where we can live and walk and be in our community, right? That's why it's becoming more popular. People are saddled by debt for a variety of reasons, medical, student loans, whatever. And it's difficult to get a mortgage. So when people are applying for mortgages, they're like, no, we don't trust that you can pay X number of dollars a month, but they're already paying that in rent and sometimes more than that. So this seems to be an option for a lot of people my age. That's why it's becoming more popular. So I think we should do more, like I said before, send down multiple ladders at multiple different levels so that people can climb up in their own way. We don't want to pull the ladder up beneath us. We're trying to make it easier for people to live in Waterville and work here and be part of the community.
Okay,
So,
Agreed.
John, it seems like there's kind of two things. We're not saying that we're going to restrict what you build above those businesses as workforce housing, but what the town asked for, that if you build housing above there and not other business stuff, it should be workforce housing and not luxury housing. Is that Tara, I guess, what the town people said?
Yeah, I don't have the survey in front of me. It sounded like Rich might.
So the question was, as a voter, would you support a zoning amendment to limit new residential development in the commercial C1 zoning district to smaller year-round dwelling units? Parenthesis, not short-term rentals or timeshares, close parenthesis, period. Comma, developed only in upper stories of mixed-use structures.
Right.
50 yes, 35 no, 15 not sure. And there were a multitude of comments that relate basically to this is not too understandable, it's ambiguous. There, I think 11 comments. I won't read them all. It would take a lot I need more information.
Well, I mean, we could make a rule that like a percentage should be like that instead of all of them. Because, I mean, I'm thinking like about Tremblant. I guess, I don't know if anybody actually lives there, except maybe the people who work there, but so that a lot of those condos are above the businesses are for tourists. But you know, we have more of a regular town, so maybe we say 50%. I mean, I'm just throwing a number out there, but it's not it doesn't have to be an all or nothing either, does it, Tara?
No, I think, but so to do an amendment like that, you'd need to not allow multifamily dwellings to be a permitted use anymore, right? Because the idea of that would be that you don't use any ground, but on the ground floor there'd be commercial or whatever. And what we discussed, I thought, was that we can continue talking about that within mind. It could go to the following town meeting. Our grant goes through June. We're available to continue helping you with additional amendments for consideration the following year. So I don't think, the public should understand that thing that they favored isn't being tossed aside, but is what I said last night was that we need to kind of roll up our sleeves and try to work through what's realistic with Terrell, because if we come up with something that they can't do, we didn't accomplish anything.
Sharon, could you read Jenny's last comment?
Yes, Jenny's signing off. She said, thank you for reading my comments and the thoughtful discussion. I have to sign off.
Okay.
She left off the meeting.
All right, thank you.
I was just waving the button here, but the other thing is that I've been involved in my former life with the development of these. And one of the reasons why, is that basically what someone is doing, and you as somebody that understands construction can appreciate, is that if you just build a ground floor of commercial use property. That has one cost. It always costs more to build up, but all of a sudden, the cost of land and everything else is less, and therefore what you're doing is you're mitigating some of the cost of your commercial property by putting things above it. Right? Now, some of these, as Morgan said, some of these are designed for not necessarily low, but moderate income housing. Also, a lot of them are not. A lot of them turn out to be luxury apartments that are above. What it is up to whatever. Now, I had a extensive discussion with somebody that I know very, very well regarding federally what we may or may not be able to get in any area in order to do affordable housing credit for a developer. Unfortunately, the chances of getting low income, call it low income, low moderate income housing in Waterville Valley, because of the, I don't want to use affluence because that has a bad connotation, but affluence of our community, the chances of us getting low income housing, she estimated at less than a third, which doesn't mean that a developer can't go for them, right? But getting those credits for the developer, if they were to make low income housing, in which case you're doing it, and what you're saying is, I'm taking these, use the number 50. I'm taking these 50 apartments that I'm building, and I'm designating, I can't do a third of 50. Say 20%, all right, which I can multiply by, all right. Those are specifically designated as affordable, which is how you do things in order to get that affordable housing credit. There are lots of things you can do, lots of things that in my former life I was involved with. I have people that know how to do it. But that is one of the things that they do to mitigate the cost of affordable housing, to make it more affordable than market rate for in places like mine, which are not affordable, and nobody could consider them affordable. But what is being built here has nothing to do with affordability. As I look around, my place, I don't want to call it in the low end, but people are building things that are worth a whole lot more than my place.
These are there's a very valid comment you're making, but I think we're getting a little.
I think we got to just say,
We're reacting
it's
to
the idea.
the-
I'm sorry.
We're reacting to Jenny's.
Yeah, I think
Question.
I think the comment was made that we're trying to create an opportunity. Those opportunities may or may not develop, whether it's subsidized housing via federal program or a developer.
There are also some minimals. There are also some not great
right
state programs that
whether
are
it's a
available
state
subsidized. There are other programs that are around.
I think it doesn't help us to go down those paths at this time. I think
but we need to set a meeting aside to do it.
I don't know if we have the.
No,
the
I'm not saying
competence.
this, I'm not saying
Yeah.
between now and whatever, but sometime in April, May, or whatever next year, we need to really set aside and say, is this something that we want to do to try and truly create what we're doing
If
now?
the town wants to get
Yeah,
them.
we're not really creating significant workforce housing. by
Again,
any
the purpose isn't
Now.
to create the housing, it's to create the opportunity for the housing to potentially be developed. I think, just to go back, I think we had one idea that maybe we should defer on the proposed amendment number 6.
Yeah.
I think we had another idea that let's move forward with it. Although I think there was a subcategory of the idea that said that maybe we move forward to it, but maybe we ought to either just table it or just defeat it outright now. So I think that's where we
Let's
need
move forward.
to go with this discussion if we want to
All right, so
move forward on.
if that's the
Proposed
case,
amendment 6.
I move that we table item number 6. What?
No, I was just whispering to Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah.
I moved.
I proposed this about an hour ago.
Well,
No, we agree. I hear what you're saying, and I think it's a good,
yeah,
so go ahead with the.
I move that we table number 6 for future consideration, so we have more information so that we can properly present it to the town at town meeting 2025.
No.
No, I told him.
That's-
Oh, no, that's his motion.
That's-
Okay.
Motion.
Okay, no,
Let them- Is there a
That's right,
second?
you're allowed to, you're allowed.
No, obviously I'm not,
Let's vote.
Is anybody gonna second
because
it?
people doesn't
Is there a
want,
second to that?
Yeah, but Mike has a right to make the motion.
obviously I don't.
No,
So
you
we
You
need a
do,
second.
but is there a
Perfectly right
second?
To make a motion. That's
Well-
perfectly okay.
Is there a second for Mike's motion?
Okay.
Okay. That ends it right there.
All right,
Bill,
so
would you like to?
I'll
make
try
a-
again. I'll propose that we go ahead with, that is, that we present for the creation of a warrant at town meeting, amendments 7 through 10. And that we continue to work on amendment 6. Because what we want is a yes vote at town. And to Margaret's point, we've had the experience of amendments that have been brought to town meeting that were voted down. And I think that the simple answer to it is that we didn't sell it well enough. I'm interested in the results. I want a yes vote. But to get a yes vote on 6, we're gonna have to overcome the tendency on the part of groups like the Moose Run Group that shot down the meeting, the amendment concerning cottage courts.
Mhm.
That we know that this phenomenon can occur. We know that there doesn't take a large number of people to rally a no vote. We know that less than 100 people come to the meetings to vote. And we know that if we get 30 or 40 people who are organized in a manner against what the planning board has proposed, that it could be a narrow vote, but it could still go down.
I just have a question. Why do you think anything's gonna change? I mean, why don't we work hard towards, I mean, why are you rejecting working hard towards convincing the people that have not formed an opinion? Rather than just acquiescing to the few
No, I'm
people-
proposing exactly that, that we work harder to sell number 6.
Yeah, but we still have time. We've got 3 months.
I didn't say no, I said we should do it.
Oh, but
So-
you said moving 7, you just skipped.
I said
6.
it's easy just to take 7 through 10 off this agenda and say that.
Right.
We approve them,
Yes.
Oh, I see
and
what
they're
you're saying.
going to town meeting. We don't have to talk about it anymore. The subject to be talked about is number 6.
So Bill, why don't we make,
That makes sense.
why don't we start over here and make 2 motions, make a motion to accept 7 through 10.
10.
And then discuss what you'd want to do with number 6 for another motion.
Okay,
So let's start with the easy one first.
I move that amendments 7 through 10 be approved by this planning board and sent to, I think it goes next to the select board, is it not?
It's for number 1.
It puts, yeah,
Okay,
for the warrant,
that
yes. We don't
amendments
approve it.
7 through 10 are accepted by this planning board and moved forward to warrants for town meeting.
Seconded.
Okay, so we have a second.
We have a
Anybody in
discussion.
favor?
Can we have a discussion?
Discussion?
please?
Discussion.
I just want to make sure that just being the process, one of the, in terms of process, does anybody have any amendments based on what we heard yesterday on 7 through 10 before we take the vote? I just want to make sure that opportunity isn't missed by anybody.
I'd say no, there was practically no discussion on 7 through 10.
No, I mean, if, is
Any of
anyone
us,
here
Okay,
want to make an amendment in any of it?
Give people a chance to reread them.
I don't hear any comment.
Alan
So
just stole mine to reread it.
I was just saying, I know.
Yeah,
I think
just for form's sake, I don't want to make it look like we just kind of
understood.
roll through.
So we have a second. Any more further discussion? All in favor for this
motion.
motion?
No, I'm gonna say.
Oh,
All in favor?
All in favor.
Is it roll
All
call
in favor?
or a voice?
Aye.
we can just do a voice.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. Go to the next motion. I know, you're good at it though,
No.
because you're absolutely right on this one, so.
Um, I move that the planning board re-examine amendment number 6 for the purpose of improving its presentation to the electorate.
For further discussion.
Or, you
Can
know,
I make a minor modification?
yes,
Yep.
Not only look at it that way, but also look at whether a minor change in wording might also be helpful. Not of context, but of wording. You know what I'm saying?
So that's what we could do if we further discuss it.
Correct, that's what
Correct.
I'm saying. So I'm just saying from what my friend said, in other words, minor modification, it opens it up so that really we're looking at context and if a minor change in wording would help us and or people in the community understand that which is trying to be accomplished.
Yep, Nancy.
Could we potentially split number 6 and
Yeah.
say one thing, say the same thing, but partly one for VC and one for HDR?
Yes. I mean, there's really 4 changes in there, right? There's principal buildings on each and there's accessory buildings on each.
So
So
basically.
that's
that would
why
be a
we
change
need
in wording.
to discuss it further so the public can understand it, so we can understand it.
Right.
But the motion on the table is to, okay, you're gonna have to do the motion
okay,
again.
the
and
motion
doing
is
it for-
to re-examine amendment number 6 for the purpose of improving its acceptability to the electorate.
Right.
Further
Yeah.
understand.
Right.
Mark?
Just as a point of order,
Yeah.
do you really need a motion? I think
Yeah.
all of your discussion, you've given Tara a lot of possibilities. What if we just develop options, right? She said there's 4
Yeah.
changes that are in there. What if we came up with options for you, Tara? That would be, you know, it could be worded this way for HDR, it could be worded this way for VC. And then you guys can say, yeah, we want to move this forward, we don't, and we can get some information together on the properties that are impacted by each option.
I agree.
And then that way, I don't think you need a real motion to do
Yeah,
that. I mean,
okay.
if you're okay, we can put it on the agenda
Yeah.
for next month. Is that timing wise? Okay, Tara?
Yeah, that's what I said at the beginning of the meeting, that I understood there'd be a lot of concern and discussion about Amendment 6, and there's no need to decide today. If you decided at the January meeting, there's time for another public hearing on any changes made to it.
And still get the warrant on the March meeting?
Yes, the deadline for submitting stuff to the town clerk is actually early February this year.
Okay.
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion, but continue to talk about not giving up. Because, you know, the first comment was, this is what we're supposed to be doing as a instrument of civic government for the benefit of the town. We're trying to answer the call of the state to do something about housing.
So it's gonna go on the January agenda.
And I just want to be clear what my assignment is between now and the January meeting. Is it to look at the number of lots in each, and because we have that map that can just count it on the map I showed last night.
So option 1 would be leave it the way it is, get some more additional information for you on the lots that are impacted. And then 2 other options, one just HDR and one VC.
Or I mean, there's 2 ways to slice it, right? You could do the HDR versus VC, or you could do principal buildings separate from accessory buildings.
We should move forward. I mean, basically, Tara
Yeah, I
and
agree.
or
We
Mark
should do it all.
is gonna figure out what are options to do with this.
Yeah.
There are multiple things that we can do with it to make it better, more understandable and whatever, and let's see where we are a month from now.
Yes.
All right?
Is that good, Tara? We got that?
I think so. You'll tell me at the next meeting.
Judd?
Well, yes,
I'm
Nancy,
sorry,
go ahead.
I had a question relating to stuff we talked about before. Mark, I guess it's a question for Mark. Can Morgan as secretary write an article for the paper and submit it, or does it have to be run by? the
I'm
board
not
first?
secretary.
Oh, you're not?
Bill is.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think,
I'm behind the times. Can
But I
Bill
would be
as
happy to write
secretary
something.
Write the article
what would it be about, Nancy?
on explaining our position on, the concept behind, proposed amendment number 6. Because we
So-
can start discussion now in the
Yeah.
paper about like, why we need to do
Why
something
we
about
want
it.
to do this, yes.
Yeah,
And I'd be very willing to accept submissions from other members of the board.
The board can authorize someone to write a letter and, under the HUP grant, Kayla and I could both take a look at it if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be great.
Careful.
Yeah.
We've got to be.
So I'd be happy to write it, I just don't know where to
oh,
start.
no, I didn't,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
You're okay.
But what-
behind the
Mr.
times.
Chairman, I think, I think we've got to be very careful. If somebody writes an article, and I talk to Mike Fergal all the time, where he says, it's not the timely thing, and nobody says it's real and everything else, but realistically, the Wigwag is our town newspaper,
Yeah,
all right? We have to be very careful, huh? It's the only newspaper. We have to be very careful if we're going to put a submission in there talking about item 6, unless or until we decide what we really want it to do and or say.
in other words, have the board approve it.
Well.
Yeah, kind of.
But not,
Well,
it
that's
doesn't
what I
have to
hear.
talk about the exact wording of the amendment. It can talk about the concepts behind it, like
Mhm.
because I think like some things like the fact that what we're working on is something that, we're obligated to do by the state, like that wasn't really out there. And the importance of, increased availability of housing, like we could start the conversation. It doesn't have to be about any of the wording of this. And we can talk about, here's one way we're thinking about it. And if you guys have any other ideas, like submit them now.
Or,
You know,
or you could have it be about the purpose of amendment 6 through 10 and pull some information from like Kayla's presentation on what the business owners told her and right, kind of the bigger picture purpose of those amendments.
yeah.
That's a good start,
Big
Margaret.
picture.
Yeah, from my perspective, what needs to be explained, because I don't understand it either, is how does amendment 6 forward low-income housing availability? How does it do that?
Kathy,
It doesn't. It just affords an opportunity for a property owner to expand on their dwelling to, perhaps then rent out to somebody. That's all. It's not, there's no tie to affordable housing or whatever term you use. It's just expanding people's opportunity to use, to build on their property, making it easier, I guess.
And it's,
Should they choose to do so.
and so it's the opportunity for the people that own the lots that are adjacent to LDR.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you look at the lots that are available right now, as I understand it, the people that own those lots are the LDR people next door.
Most of
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
that's for
Yeah.
now, but we've got to do this for the future too. We're not just doing it for this month.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but when people go to the voting box, they're not voting about the future, they're voting about the present. And what's going on in the present. And if we are very clear on what the reason is that we think that this should go forward. I still believe that there's going to be some question about how what we're saying relates to this zoning change. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
I think
that's up to
I think it's gonna
600.
be very difficult to communicate to the community that there are a number of small parcels around here, some of which abut LDRs, But oh, by the way, they're owned, most of them are owned by the people who have the LDR lot next door. How is this going to advance the opportunity for housing?
Are they? I guess
How is it gonna do that?
Some of them, in some
I
cases,
checked
that's
some of
true.
them.
But what is the, I think
Margaret,
this
you're
is very
absolutely right.
difficult. No, but you see, what are we writing here? I mean, what's the central theme? I hear two different things. I hear the concept of what the board is trying to do overall. And I hear we need to write something that supports this particular proposed amendment. Well, there is a proposed amendment, but we're backing away from it
Correct.
at this
Well, yeah,
point, so.
what if
I
the
don't think we're
first-
backing away from it. I think we're just trying to review it.
What if you just worded the first article being the basis for the need? Go over, because there were only a few people here when we did the HOP grant presentation. Take the presentation and lay a foundation for what the need is.
Mhm.
And then say in the last paragraph that the board's looking at several amendment proposals to the zoning ordinance to address these problems. And then watch for next month, we're gonna talk about the proposals. That gives you another meeting to come together and figure out what you're gonna do with number 6. And then you can present all of them together in an article for the February issue.
That's great.
I think that's valid, because there was objection last night to the comment that we're doing this for the improvement of the community, for the
Best
betterment
interest.
of,
Right.
what was the phrase, for the general good?
The best interest of the town. I think.
Right, for the best interest of the town, there was objection to that.
Right, so let's put out some information
say-
about
Point
that.
first.
Yeah, that's entirely,
Then you don't have to talk about the amendments at all this month.
Yeah.
You got 5 days to get it to
Mike Fergal,
Mike Fur.
yeah.
You seem opposed.
No, I'm not I'm always, more information is always better than the best we can. The more we can do to educate people of what we're about is obviously a good thing, but I don't think this is an education or a advertising issue, letting people know, they know what we're trying to do in general. They're opposed to it because it based on their own interest, which they are best to determine. So I don't think we're gonna change. I guess I'm siding more or less what Margaret is. It's gonna be a lot of effort.
I agree with the sentiment,
But
like,
just-
we have had multiple meetings, we have.
Yeah, we've already.
Things
gone
are
through
posted,
this.
like, they're asking about the zoning map, it's literally right there, it's
It-
huge, they can
it's-
come here and see it.
It's on the website,
It's on the website, I
Yeah.
put the tax maps yesterday and was going through and looking at the few lots that were open.
right? People
Like,
can do their own research.
They
too.
can, like, and like you said at the very beginning of the meeting, there is this, they have a responsibility as voters to be educated on this, and it seems that they come in force when it affects them personally, and they don't like it, but we're talking about a handful of properties compared to the entire valley. And I don't want to kowtow to Tyrell, I don't want to kowtow to certain homeowners. Waterville has different neighborhoods in different sections, some are denser than others. Is 15 feet really that big of a deal?
Yes. Some
For
people.
some people it is.
So
For
let's take a
some
vote
people
on
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
And,
Why are we
and
fussing around? Let's just vote on it.
Okay, but the point is to get a yes vote. And we know what is going to happen. That is that there's a high probability that if we continue to operate as we have, the planning board has in the past, that the negative voters, the negative thinkers will rally more negative thinkers, and that it doesn't take that many to produce a negative result at town meeting.
My point is that's gonna happen anyway, whatever we move forward with, Bill.
All right,
Right.
I think
But
that's,
this time we're starting early and we're trying.
That's a little
unlike
too
the last
pessimistic.
Yeah, we're trying to educate. There was a post by Jenny on the Waterville Valley News and Views that was like, there is a hurdle for us to join this meeting. So now there is this perception that we are setting up blocks. Like,
Yeah.
she had said, I don't have the exact wording, but it was basically like, you have to call the town in order to get the Zoom link. So I'm saving you all the trouble and here it is. So that perception is now out there. So if we can take steps to put an
That was
article that
security,
educates.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Security thing, right? That's.
That's-
yeah.
Absolutely.
They should answer that though.
Right,
Yeah.
intention is different than perception.
You're
Well,
right.
perception is
Absolutely.
reality for many people. And that all that it takes is an accusation in order to create a guilty verdict.
Yes.
You know, the whole idea of due process goes out the window when you're talking about propaganda on social media.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's how negative votes are generated. So to generate a positive vote, it's our job to do a better job in presenting. To be more forceful in selling our point of view. I mean, it's marketing.
If we want it to pass, yes,
If we want to
just.
pass, we have to market our ideas.
Yep.
And we're gonna get snowed again. I agree with these other two people over here. It'll go down in flames if we don't do it, if we don't do our own marketing.
And even if it does go down in flames, we tried.
Yes, it's better to try than to just say, okay, look, there's objection, are we gonna give up on 6?
It's not a question of giving up. My point is, are there any changes that we can possibly make that's gonna avoid that? And I'm saying I have very grave doubts. We spend a lot of time and a lot of work to look at this. We're gonna have our town planner at our cost, look at this, make some changes, and we're gonna be the exact same place we are now.
So Tara, if we were to write an article, what are the confines we have to keep it in? Like, we can't. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like, what are the do's and don'ts of this sort of public outreach?
You can. Well. I don't think I can answer that off the top of my head, not being a lawyer. I know you're always able to express your own opinion as individual members, and that's often encouraged. To do it that way.
We're good at that.
You
But not as like
one of
on behalf-
one of the constraints is we say no public money can be used for advocating a vote a certain way. So even if you asked Sharon to make a copy of something for you or forward an email, you've done that. That's one reason we encourage individual members to write things and express their opinions.
Thank you. Can you sign it, member of the planning board, or do you not, can you sign it as an individual, not as, do you have to say that? Not as a member of the planning board? Like, what do you do to make sure that you're showing that you don't represent the whole planning board if you're writing as an individual?
Right.
Well,
Say
You
that.
have to acknowledge that you're a member of the planning
Yeah.
board and say, but.
And this is your personal.
Yeah. This for disclosure.
But it
Right.
can't just be informational.
But
Except
don't we
for what
want to
just-
write something from the planning board?
Mark, go ahead.
Well, what we just talked about was not having anything about the amendments in this first article. So there is no opinion about how to vote. It is a statement of the need,
correct.
Right.
what the HOP grant was all about. So if you stick to that, then we can help you. We can give you numbers. Tara, or Kayla can review it. We're not talking about the amendments yet.
Right.
So the amendments, then you guys gotta do that as individuals.
No, I think there's a ton of good, simple talking points in, if you look at things like the zoning audit and the presentations that North Country Council did for that kind of article.
Focus on that first.
Well, look at me, but.
Well, because if we're gonna write an article.
I can do it.
Oh, you
I'm
volunteer?
capable.
Morgan, why don't you and Morgan together work?
We've collaborated on other things.
This is not coming from the planning. board.
It is.
Yes.
It is. This is on behalf of the planning
From the
board.
planning
This is
board.
the-
Very careful.
The planning.
Yes,
wants
that's
to
why
talk
we're
about
talking
the
about
need.
it.
Why we're in this process, why the planning
That's why
board
I'm
is-
here.
But it's not gonna go on the paper till Tara takes a look at it and say,
Yes.
okay, this is good, or no way.
We have to reword this because that's an opinion, yes.
So that would be good, but we're gonna put this on January's agenda.
Right, so we have fewer than 5 days, I guess, or 5 days before the wigwags.
For January this year.
So some kind of comments about it would be good. Give it to-
I work I work this weekend, so I can give you quick feedback on the weekend.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I have time this afternoon and tomorrow. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Just start it.
Okay.
Don't, and please don't talk about it
That's it.
on email
Yeah.
as board
Amongst ourselves,
members.
we can't do that.
Let's let a draft go out and then it'll be an informational draft to you. This is what's going to go in the wigwam.
Yeah.
Unless you call a meeting and then you can discuss it. But.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
don't send emails to each other about the article. Send them to Tara or staff.
So it'll be me, Bill, Tara, Town, and Caleb.
Can we send them to Bill? Or Morgan?
After it's drafted only as information, not for editing.
So we can't send anything helpful to them at all?
Well,
Or-
two of you can talk about it, because you're not a.
Not a quorum.
But three
But
can't.
three can't, three's a four.
So I can send stuff.
That's stuff for one of us.
No,
so
but
I
anyway,
can
two
send
people can
stuff
talk
to
to each other.
one of them?
Yeah, you can go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely, you all could send things individually.
Okay, so I'll.
What
send
he's
stuff-
saying is not to copy the whole, if you copy the whole board, then you've had a meeting.
Okay. Got it.
Would we like to continue or can we move on?
Move on.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we're gonna, with the chief,
Dave had to leave, so we'll have to refer this to Tara. Tara, there was a question from David Noyes about the building permit ordinance that the town passed last year. Or that we're doing now, whatever the situation is. Bottom line is, building permits are mentioned in the zoning ordinance
Mm-hmm.
right now. And we're setting up a separate process with the selectmen and the building inspector for the building permit.
Mhm.
Separate document for that. So there would be a need, Tara, to remove the reference to building permits from the zoning ordinance. Is that correct?
Well. The question would be, do you have any separate building code other than enforcing the state code?
We have had a town meeting vote to enforce the state code. And we have a separate process, separate from the zoning ordinance. For the building permit process and inspections.
And that's typical and it, for some reason in it's common for that to be mentioned in the zoning ordinance, even though it's a different enabling statute. So I think.
So could we put it down as a possible agenda item for January?
I'm wondering if you'd want to do it the following year so that you're not getting more amendments this year because you have 10. So I don't think it's hurting anything by being in there.
As long as the building inspector can continue to do their work. The way it is.
Is what's in the zoning ordinance in conflict with what we want to do separately? Or just,
Sorry, Dave had to leave. But he.
Mark, maybe you and I and Dave need to talk about this and go from there.
I'd just like to have it possible to be on the January agenda.
it is possible.
Okay, very good. As long as, yes, we will do that.
Correspondence, do we have anything on correspondence? Town group core.
Oh,
Who's,
We were both there. Go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, you were there?
We were
Yes,
both
Oh
there.
my God. I was such a space cadet. Again, I gotta find my notes, sorry. There it is. Okay, so at the town core meeting just this past week, we discussed, the Valley Road completed project, you know, with the painted on sidewalk. And, nobody's heard any complaints. I don't know if any of you guys have, but great.
Yeah.
I think recently anyway.
Yeah, we also discussed the state grant for 800,000 for the road project that we just completed. Did Mark, have you talked to the planning board about that
No.
when I wasn't here? Okay.
So, go ahead.
Okay. So the summary is basically, you know, So we just spent our own money on it. But we have 200,000 of town money set aside for engineering for further road work. Maybe Snows Mountain Road. But we have to decide and coordinate possible sewer installation in that area. But we are gonna ask the state if we can use that money for a 2025 road project. So that'll give us another $1 million project. With most of the money coming from the state. And then there's a smaller matter, during the turkey plunge time period freeze. Somebody dumped an entire barrel of snow melt, rather than just spreading some, I think on the pond bridge, is that right? So now that we've secured, or the town secured the buckets to the railing, in case you're wondering why that happened. The mountain is asking for some trees to be taken down along the trail by the river so they can safely plow without hitting lights.
Or groom the trail.
Yeah, groom the trail, that's what I mean. Some of them are dead, some of them are just like too risky and they don't want to hit the lights. And that was pretty much a summary.
What's being done about the ice melt?
The Golden Eagle Lodge path that goes from the lodge down to town square.
That steep part.
Just one of the buckets of salt and sand that they put out had been dumped out. They've secured the buckets now, so that hopefully that won't happen.
Oh, it was just dumped out on the
The
ground
town
right
and
there. Okay,
Golden Eagle Lodge is working on maintaining that path
okay,
down the hill.
got it.
Is that our land or their land?
It is town land.
Okay.
For the majority, there is a section.
The
that
top
is on
section is
Golden
theirs.
Eagle on the
Yeah.
top.
You can almost actually see where the break is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the town core committee has been talking about how to kind of redo that area to make it safer. And it's been hard to come up with something that's practical and safe and
Yeah.
reasonably cost efficient.
Understood, okay. Conservation, so some good news is Rick Van Pol now finally has a meeting with Forest Service.
He's alive.
Wow. Regarding the mitigation for the pond, so that's really, really good news, because we've been waiting for 2 years, I think, for that to happen, so yay. And the next conservation meeting will be December 19th, so it's in a few days. So I'll have more information for you in January. Speaking of January, we have a meeting scheduled for the 11th of January. Does that work for everyone? Good, thank you. How's you come? January 11th is a Thursday.
John, was my contract not correspondent?
Not until we have our meeting.
Yeah, we gotta have our meeting first, and then we're gonna let everyone know what we
It'll
discussed.
be on January.
Yeah.
It was correspondence though. That, I mean, I would think you'd let the board know that I submitted it for the board's review today, but that the staff is meeting with me next week.
Well, sure, we have, Tara has a contract, it's due every December. We have a meeting with Tara and staff, Mark and Steve, myself. To go over her contract for some needs and some wants for us and for Tara. We'll let everyone know what we, come across with the meeting, on January 6th, and we'll put that on the agenda at that time. Good point. 11.
January 11th.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at amendment number 6, January 11th, scratch that. January 6th, please. Okay, Tara, is that good?
Sure, I had hoped the board would have an opportunity to review it today. Because you're gonna have a gap, and if the it's the planning board's contract, if they wanted any changes when they see it in January, then we're talking February before you have a contract. So that was my concern. Is that
Yeah.
if there were changes the board wanted, we may come all at the same time, but
Yeah, because we have concerns as well that we've got to plug in there, and then the board can take care of it, so we can probably approve it by the 6th, January 6th.
11th.
What's going on in my head here? January
Well,
11th.
I'll be participating at that meeting under the HOP grant anyway, so.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. So, anything else anyone wants to discuss? We're all good? Anyone want to make a motion? Morgan, you want to make a motion?
All right, I move to adjourn.
Yeah, that's a good one. You want to
Good one,
second?
I'll second that.
All right, everyone in favor?
All right.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.